discretion advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
A mistress isn't just a term used for a woman having an extramarital affair. It's also a term that describes a woman in a position of control. David Harris had two women in his life, a mistress and a wife. The question was, which one had more control over David? His answer would cost him his life. Clara Harris was born in Colombia. Her father was an electrical engineer determined to shield her from the poverty that surrounded them. Unfortunately, when he died, she was only 5. Her mother was a seamstress and tried her best to provide for them. Clara was a diligent student and worked hard to get through dental school. She knew her father would have been proud. She legally moved to the U.S. in the late 1980s. She completed her residency at the University of Texas School of Dentistry in Houston. She was also crowned Miss Columbia Houston at a beauty pageant. In the summer of 1991, she got a job at a dental office. It was there that she met orthodontist David Harris. He was divorced with a younger daughter. David and Clara instantly felt a connection. The two started dating, and by February 14, 1992, they were married. They had a Valentine's Day wedding fit for royalty at the Nassau Bay Hilton Hotel. The two were a power couple. They quickly opened their own practice, which did extremely well. So well that they opened more than one office. They bought expensive cars and built a home in a neighborhood with a private airstrip. Clara got along great with Lindsay, David's daughter, and wanted more children. Clara had a difficult time getting pregnant, but undergoing fertility treatments, she gave birth to twin boys in 1998, Brian and Bradley. Their life seemed to be proof that hard work pays off and dreams do come true. So how did this fairy tale romance turn into a horror movie? And when I say a horror movie, David's murder was actually caught on camera. Yes, David loved Clara, but it really depends on who you ask just how much. Some of David's friends said that he wouldn't even look at other women. He didn't even like to hang out with the guys. But some of Clara's friends gave a different description. They said David was a ladies' man, that he flirted with other women openly, quite often in front of Clara, that he even kept notes that waitresses would leave him. Maybe David enjoyed the attention of other women, but was loyal to his wife. After all, she had helped him achieve his goals. Or maybe it would take just the right woman to make him question his loyalty. David split time between their offices, working 2 days a week in the office at Lake Jackson with Clara, and the other 3 days at the Clear Lake office. In 2001, he needed to hire a receptionist for the office where he spent most of his time. He hired a woman named Gail Bridges. She was divorced and had 3 children. It wasn't long before the other women in the office started questioning Gail's intentions. Everybody likes to be noticed for doing a good job, but she was making sure she was getting noticed by constantly flirting. Everyone in the office seemed to see what was happening, except for Clara. David and Gail started sneaking away, going to lunch together, and fondling each other in the corners of the office. David started spending late nights at work and missing events. With all the time he was spending away from home and all the money he was spending on lunches, gifts, and hotel rooms, it seems like Clara would have started to question things. But she was busy working, managing their house, and taking care of the kids. The week of July 4th, 2002, the Harris family went to Jamaica. The ladies in the office thought this would be the trip that brought David back to reality. But they were wrong. When he returned, his relationship with Gail seemed as lively as ever. Knowing it was putting her job on the line, a coworker confronted David about his blatant open actions with the receptionist. David realized his little secret was not really a secret at all, and it was just a matter of time until Clara found out. The morning of July 17th, David confessed to Clara that he had been having an affair. Clara was obviously devastated, especially when he told her that they'd been going to the very hotel where he and Clara had exchanged their wedding vows. She asked David if he wanted a divorce, and he quickly answered no. He wanted to work on their marriage and would end the relationship with his mistress. When he revealed that the other woman was his receptionist, Clara went to the office and immediately fired her. Clara asked David what was wrong with her, and he didn't hold back. He didn't even reassure her that it wasn't her fault. He gave her a list as long as the receipts from CVS. He said that while he appreciated how driven she was with her career, it often took her attention off of him. Add the kids to the mix, and he felt neglected. Maybe many men share that similar sentiment, but what he said next shocked Clara. He said she was too fat and her body had changed. Clara had been a beauty queen, and her husband was telling her that she was no longer attractive. He went on to add that he loved Gail's breast implants and how thin she was, and that she made time to show him affection. At that point, many women probably would have walked away, but Clara didn't. She took that list and started checking the boxes to give David the woman that he wanted. She canceled all of her appointments at work for that week. She hired a personal trainer, dyed her hair blonde, immediately started losing weight, joined a tanning salon, and scheduled surgery for breast augmentation and liposuction. She was completely reinventing herself for David. So when David said he felt like he owed Gail an explanation, Clara said, okay. David told her that he was going to meet her for dinner and let her know that it was over for good. Although the more Clara started to think about it, the more she started to feel uneasy about the whole idea. She went to the Blue Moon Private Detective Agency and asked them to watch her husband. On July 24th, David was supposed to meet Gail for dinner. Clara had a friend go to the restaurant where he told her they would be, and they were not there. The longer she waited, the more she worried her suspicions would be confirmed. Finally, she called the agency and asked for an update. One of their provisions on the contract was that the client could not interfere with the investigation. So when they told Clara that their PI was sitting outside a hotel where David and Gail's cars were located, they had no idea that she knew exactly which hotel they were at. That turned out to be a deadly mistake. Clara told her stepdaughter Lindsay to get in the car, and they drove to the Nassau Bay Hilton. Gail's Lincoln Navigator had a heart-shaped hitch, so it was easy to find in the parking garage. Clara broke the windshield wipers and keyed the car before marching into the lobby. She couldn't find out what room her husband was in, so Lindsay called her dad and told him one of the boys was sick and they needed him at home. A little while later, the elevator doors opened and the couple stepped out, hand in hand, far from looking like a relationship that had just ended. Clara lunged for Gail, grabbed her hair, and started punching her. Lindsay started hitting her dad with her purse, screaming, "I hate you." Guests and hotel staff stepped in and pulled them all apart. But there, in that moment, David could have tried to salvage what was left of his family. Instead, he grabbed Gail's hand and left the lobby with her. His decision was clear. Heartbroken, Clara got in her car. She pressed the accelerator as she headed towards them. Clara's Mercedes-Benz sedan made contact with David's body, and he landed 30 feet away. Clara then whipped her car around, driving over medians, and went at him again, and then hit him again. Clara got out of her car and cradled David's head, which was missing his ears and losing teeth. She sobbed, saying, "Look what you made me do." At 9:48 p.m., David was pronounced dead. A few minutes before, when the PI saw David and Gail walking out of the hotel, she started recording so that Clara would have the video to use in divorce proceedings. Instead, it was used in the trial when Clara was charged with murder. The PI caught the entire chain of events on film. The story made national news. People quickly picked a side. Some thought Clara was a cold-blooded killer. Others thought David signed his own death certificate when he walked out of the hotel with Gail, leaving his wife and daughter in complete hysteria and embarrassment. Clara's trial started in February 2003. Lindsay testified against Clara. She said that she begged her to stop. She said that she was traumatized by the sight of her father getting run over. The PI's video was shown, and the jury could hear the eerie sound of the tires screeching. Although David's body was not clear in the video, you could see Clara circling 3 times. The prosecution stated that Clara used her $70,000 vehicle as a 4,000-pound murder weapon. The defense argued that it was a horrific crime of passion brought on by David's ultimate betrayal. The question wasn't whether or not Clara did it. The question was, what was her intent at the time? The jury was 9 women and 3 men. If Clara would have filed for divorce, she would have done very well. And even though many women could empathize with Clara's emotional state, they just couldn't justify her killing David. She was found guilty of murder during a crime of sudden passion on February 14, 2003. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison on the very day that would have been her wedding anniversary. In a wedding, when traditional vows are exchanged, it ends with, "Till death do us part." Clara took that last part to heart. She was not willing to let David leave her for another woman. Their marriage could have ended with divorce. They could have still raised their kids. But instead, the kids grew up with a deceased dad and an incarcerated mom. Which brings to mind the old saying, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." That is 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, the host, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to my podcast. If you're new to 10-Minute Murder, welcome. Settle in, make yourself comfortable, and subscribe now. That will more easily help you catch up on all the back episodes and also help you not miss any of the new ones. And speaking of new ones, coming up on the next episode of 10-Minute Murder, if you're into the sports ball, football in particular, maybe you've heard of this story. Steve McNair, retired NFL quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. He was cheating on his wife, and it's similar to the story you heard today, but not really. He was cheating on his wife, and he was murdered, but not by his wife. He was murdered by his mistress, and there's a lot more to go into, but you'll hear all of that coming up on the next episode of 10-Minute Murder. Connect with the podcast on social media, see the pictures of what we talk about here on the podcast. It's never gross and graphic stuff, though. If you like this episode, leave a rating and review any place that's possible, and you can go to 10minutemurder.com for all things related to the podcast. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of 10-Minute Murder. I'll see you on the next one.